All right, here with Amazon Ads expert Ryan Logan, and we are in the Amazon Ads console or dashboard. So, yeah, give us a tour as if I am a beginner of the Amazon Ads console. Where do you hang out? What are the main kind of pieces, elements? What do I need to know if I'm getting started doing this for my business? So, yeah, off to you.
Yeah. So first thing you should know, Amazon is constantly rolling out and implementing new changes. Most of where I hang out is really here in campaigns, budgets, products, targeting. These have been really fun betas that they actually rolled out, and I really like those. And then also in the measurement and reporting, this is a place where I like to hang out because they're sponsored ad report. So you come into the advertising console through Seller Central. So you click on advertising, and you come in here for campaign manager, it brings you here. Just know that if you ever get lost in all of this, you can always, in the top left corner, there's always going to be this Amazon ads option. And if you click on it, it brings you back to this page right here. Okay. And so it always brings you back to Amazon ads with campaigns. So if you're ever lost, you can always come back. So if we land here in the advertising console, campaigns, this section right here, or this tab is going to be associated with all the current campaigns as they stand. And you can actually look at all these. You obviously have graphs here that you can actually choose the different ratios or part pieces of the graph that you actually want in there. If you ever want to change it, um, you can actually click on the drop down arrow, or some of the older versions have it where there's a little X in the top right corner that you can click on the X and it removes it. There's a plus sign after you can click on it and add another one. But you can change it from, in this case, we'll do ROAS. And if I'm like, hey, I want to know what the clicks are, I can actually adjust it for clicks, to spend, to sales, and I can watch all the graphs at once, or I can really narrow down, okay, my sales and my clicks associated with that, or the one that I tend to like the most is actually impressions. I feel like that impressions does show things pretty well. And then also cost per click is one that I look at consistently too. If there's certain weeks or months or days that we tend to have sometimes better sales or lower sales, sometimes you can look at the cost per click and say, oh, wow, if we actually hang out around this certain cost per click, we have certain results. So anyways, you can mess around with these graphs and use those to actually show you the data that you want to see. And then coming down, you have your campaigns as it shows here in these headings, campaigns, impressions. When you actually first come into the advertising console, most of these are not clicked. In fact, if I remember right, it really starts off with spend, sales, and maybe ROAS are really the only columns that are actually showing. So when you first come in and you start an ad campaign, you are going to have to customize these columns right here, as well as you can always customize the date range. But in customizing the columns, you just come over here and hit customize columns. In fact, we just reset to default. We'll change all the columns. Yeah, it's missing a few things here that I like to look at. So usually I'll come into columns, I'll hit customize columns. I like to know what portfolio they are in, the impressions, advertising cost of sale. So that is what I am used to. I'm actually more familiar with that because of Amazon's platform than I am with ROAS. So I tend to like to look at that more. And then if you're running a lot of different branding campaigns, you can actually hit these. And these are going to be different columns that you can use just for mainly branded campaigns. And then you hit apply, and they're all there, and you can look at those. And every campaign is going to have the overall bird's eye view of every single one of basically all the data over that span or that lifetime, okay, or that date range. So you can do today, yesterday, last 7 days, this week, last 30 days, this month, last month, year to date, and lifetime. And now you can also drag and drop a custom if you wanted to, but it really only goes back roughly 90-ish days for you to actually pull that data. And so this is where a search term report is a little more helpful because you can actually manually pull that data instead of just trying to get it to show up here in the advertising console. We'll get to that later, but you can actually choose those different time periods. Now, there is a preset that I do like of the last 65 days that you can get into the search term report within the console to actually pull. And so that is a preset that I do. So I'll actually intentionally go into a search term report here in order to change that as a preset. As far as the campaign structure, we'll get into that first because this is really where you're going to hang out the most, is probably in campaigns. And so we'll just walk through this. So when the campaign is created, the campaign structure, when you click on the campaign, there's going to be a campaign, and then underneath that campaign is basically ad groups. I tend to not do more than one ad group, but I know other people who do multiple ad groups in a single campaign, and that's the hierarchy and the structure of that campaign. If you look at it as that type of a funnel, and so you can actually have different pieces of this campaign. We've already walked through how to create a campaign. So once a campaign is created, this is what it looks like, and this is how it's housed. So you click on it in the ad group, so you can click right into the ad group, and it'll actually take you to the ad group level, but we're going to look on the campaign level first. So on the campaign level, this is where you control bid strategy, placement bids, and then you can also insert negative targeting on the campaign level, regardless of any ad group that's ever created. Now, I tend to do very little in the campaign level as far as negative targeting. Some people don't, but I work mainly with just a single ad group, so I usually don't create multiple ad groups, but some people do. You can create budget rules. This is something that you can go and create different rules associated with budget, where if you're like, hey, I'm hitting a certain ACoS or a certain threshold, feel free to increase my budget, et cetera, et cetera. You can create those rules if you want to. In the campaign settings here, you can actually change your campaign name at any time. You can also change the portfolio here if you want. You can turn it on and off, as well as you can in the main campaigns page. You can adjust budget. You can put an end date if you wanted to. You can change the bidding strategy from a dynamic bids up and down to dynamic bids down only, fixed bids, or this one doesn't accept rule-based bidding, but some of the other campaign types do. And then you can still adjust the placement bid here under campaign settings. Now notice if you do change it here, it will also change over in placements, right? And vice versa. So I come in here and I put 0, it will actually change it here. I don't know why that didn't go through, but it's supposed to. Anyway, so that's that place, and also this history. Now, one thing to be aware of, if you're trying to look at the history of a campaign, there's different pieces of data attached to the different pieces of history, okay? So you actually have history that's actually going to be associated with, there's an account history, overall account, you have a campaign history, and then you have an ad group history. And so ad group history is going to be cost per click changes, obviously inserting negative products, negative terms, that type of thing, pausing ad group or pausing search terms and targets there. On the campaign level, you're going to see different statuses. So if it was if the whole campaign was paused or unpaused, if the portfolio was changed, if it ran out of budget, those are different things that are going to be on the campaign level, because those are what's associated with that grouping of that house. That is the campaign structure. Okay, so if we come over to ad groups, if you click on ad group, so this one we just have as ad group 1. If you had multiple ads, we'll actually go back here so you can see that. If you ever want to add additional ad groups with different targeting types, you can do that by creating an ad group here. You can manually create another ad group right there. Just like this, you can add things in, whatever. So I'm going to go back. All right, so coming back in, so under ad groups, we're going to click on ad group 1. And this takes us to the next level. So you'll see ads. And in ads, in the ad section, is the different houses, the different products that you want to advertise to. Okay, so we can, at any time, we can add different products to advertise within this ad group. We can click them all here. If we add it in, then we can click add products to advertise, and when done, it'll actually pop up here as another option. Then you can do targeting, and this is going to be where either the search terms are or the different type of so this one's an automatic campaign. You'll have the different match types: loose match, close match, complements, and substitutes. which we've gone over these in that other campaign structure, the bid type, or sorry, the bid amount that you're actually bidding for that, and then the different ratios and things associated with that. You can have negative targeting in here. So if we put in negative keywords, they're actually going to show up here on the ad group level. Search terms, it really only shows the search terms for, like I said, the last 30 days. There is a preset here in the search terms section of the ad group. You can actually change this preset to the last 65, and if it has data within the last 65, it'll show up. In the ad group settings, you can change the name of the ad group. You can pause or activate the ad group, and you can even adjust to the default bid that you actually want that ad group to consistently have. And then, of course, you can come into history. In this history, we change this over lifetime. So there will actually be different targeting ad group loose match added. This is actually just basically when the campaign was actually created for a lot of this. And that's where you're going to find the history. But like I said, this is where you're going to find a lot of different cost per click changes showing up here, and everything. And if you ever want to go back, you can actually go back. You can follow the sectionals of this, or the sections of this. So you have all campaigns, which is the main page. You have the campaign level that you're actually at, and then you have this, the ad group. So if you have multiple ad groups and you're like, oh, I want to go look at ad group number 2, or if you want to just go back to the campaign level settings, in level to actually make some adjustments there, you can just click here and it'll take you back to the campaign. And then you'll see here on the ad group, you can adjust it to the placements. And if you're done here, you can always come back to all campaigns. All right, so that is how the ad groups and the campaigns are structured. Different campaigns do have different structures. Amazon, again, is still trying to conform this so it's universal across even the different types, like the product target or the sponsored products, sponsored display, and even sponsored brand, where they show up very similar. So it doesn't seem like it's very different, but they, in the past, they actually were significantly different, but they're doing a lot better at that now. As an example, this is a traditional sponsored brand video ad right here. And here, when sponsored brand video ads were originally created, you didn't have ad groups. You had just the targeting, the negative targeting, creative. Like, you don't even have a search term report here. Whereas if you actually have a newer campaign, a newer sponsored brand ad, it actually does have that. That's so most of you will not likely experience one that's this basic. It's going to be a little bit more advanced. So within this main section, okay, for all the campaigns, really under sponsored ads, when you click on this tab over here and then hit campaign manager, so under campaign manager directly, this is where these are the tabs that I mainly hang out with. Like I said, there is a history associated with the account level view. And so if we click in here, it will actually show over the lifetime all the different changes. It's going to take forever to load, so I'm probably going to move on from this before this is even loaded, but it'll show all of the different changes. It'll have similar scopes. Anytime that it shows up with these dotted lines, that means that there actually is different changes associated with this. Like, you'll actually see in essentially November of 2019, there were 2,800 changes, and it actually keeps track of all the different changes over these different time periods for that month. And so if you ever needed to, you can actually just say, okay, I need to actually zero in on the different changes that occurred at this time. So if you made a whole bunch of changes in a given month and you notice that the data is skewed in a negative way, you can go back and review that data. That's the whole point of the history. Now, there are softwares that get a little more granular into this in a single bird's eye view that you can actually narrow down and just really start funneling down into the different things. And so if you have that software and want to utilize that software, you can. Otherwise, it's always readily accessible here in Amazon Ads Console. Sometimes people just don't know where to find it. So here's the history. Over here, you also have settings. Okay, so on your account level, I have to be very careful with this. Usually, actually, what do I do, Riley, if I don't normally show a beginner something that I think that they can really mess with and really mess things up?
You can give your take on this.
All right, I normally don't share this with people, especially beginners. So take this with a grain of salt, okay? And don't use it unless you know there could be consequences, okay? Normally, everything is set up when you first launch a campaign. There is a campaign level budget that you actually set here, right? So you have start date, you have the budgets right here. I can actually adjust this to be $400 or whatever I want to do. And that's the daily budget associated with that. It doesn't mean that Amazon is going to use all of that budget, especially given the amount of cost per click that you're doing. And there's all sorts of other influences that can, and other factors that decide really if you're going to be blowing through or using that budget. Now, over here in the settings on the campaign level, you can actually adjust and control budget flow. So right now on Riley's account, we actually do have a $600 daily budget cap, which means if at any time we blow through $600 of budget, then it just stops. No big deal. Now that is because we have done testing after testing, and this is a comfortable place for us to hang out. Now, if you ever want to remove this, you actually have to click on use campaign level budgets and hit clicks and hit save. Or if you ever want to establish a daily budget, you have to click on here and enter the daily budget cap that you want and hit save. So that is one thing. This is usually not a bad thing to do. The other option where you can control budgets in kind of different way is actually over here in portfolios. Okay, so you can group campaigns by portfolios. In fact, I know some people who have experimented with different funnels. I've done it actually myself for some clothing companies. We actually have like different portfolios that deal with different types of products, right? And this is very similar. So when you click on portfolios, you can actually come over here, and this you'll actually see the data associated with how each one of the portfolios is doing. This is one of the best things that Amazon has actually added, in my opinion, in the last little while, because I like to organize by portfolios to keep things organized. So here is where I can actually see that. And I can say, okay, so the foreign one, this was the data. The sponsored display ads, this was the data. The lavalier mic, this is the data, etc., etc., etc. And I can see it from a bird's eye view according to how that specific groupings of ads actually did. If in the foreign one, I wanted to adjust this even further, if I click into the portfolio, I can actually, at the top, there's now a banner here that says modify, that is about the portfolio. And I can hit modify portfolio. I can change the name of the portfolio. I can also insert and change a budget cap. So right now there's no budget cap associated with it, okay? But just as you can put a budget cap on the account and say, hey, I'm never going to spend more than $600 in a day, I can also come in here and say, hey, during a certain date range from budget start to budget end, I only want to spend 150 bucks between this day, or if there's no end date, then as soon as the $150 is done, that portfolio stops. Or if you put between date, even if you don't max out the 150, that means that budget ends that day, even if you don't hit the budget cap. The other option is to do recurring monthly. This is actually, I've experimented with this strategy a little bit more, and I like it a little bit more when there's designated ad spend associated with different products. That happens sometimes. I'll actually put like a recurring of $200 for this portfolio that is recurring every single month, and it might end on a certain time. I'll put never, and then you have to, of course, hit save changes. Where you have to be very careful is when you utilize these different date ranges. I had a client actually in the past who reached out to me, and they said they were super concerned, and they said, our total ad spend, we've spent 45 cents today. What's the problem? And this is the first place I came to look, because I knew that the client had talked to me about putting in budget caps, and they had put in like a $75 budget cap, and he put a budget start and then no budget date. So it ran out of 75 bucks and just paused all the campaigns associated with that in the entire portfolio. So this is where you do want to be a little more careful, but it is, as long as you take the time to look at this, it's pretty simple. But you can get into complications with this if you're not careful.
So you like to set the portfolios usually like per one product, or if it's like one of the hero products, have that all in
Yeah,
the portfolio, which is a collection of campaigns.
correct.
All right, what else is going on in here? Anything else worth
So
noting?
yeah, so over here in the sponsored ads section, you have drafts. So if you ever create a sponsored display ad or a sponsored brand ad that was not approved, or you didn't finish it quite in the section, it's saved in draft. You can come over here and edit, or you can delete them. You can edit them to try and update it so that it actually does get approved. Over here in budgets, this is a beta group right now, but this actually keeps track of over a certain time period, how were the different campaigns at staying in budget. So this is actually one thing that is really hard. If you're not in Amazon all the time, sometimes you miss when campaigns run out of budget. And so this, I actually love this section. I think this is a great beta to add in. and section to add in, because it will usually give a recommended budget if it's out of budget. And you can update that budget to fit in that average time in budget so you can have spend the whole entire time. Now, this is something fairly new, but I believe that Amazon will consistently roll it out. But you can actually come in and view how each product is doing on its own merit, regardless of the different campaigns that it's actually associated with it.
Oh,
Over,
that's good.
yep, yeah, this is brand new. I don't know if you've even seen this, Riley.
No, but it makes sense.
Yeah, they've needed to do something like this for a while. Like I said, there's different softwares that you could pull this, and it would actually extract all this data, and you could even pull it from different reports. But Amazon is making those same reports more readily accessible, just straight up in the advertising console. And so I've been actually pulling less and less search term reports and other reports because most of it's accessible. And so I don't need to as much, which is nice. Yeah, you can actually look at just a single SKU. You can drop it down if there's additional variations associated with that. Or actually, this will drop down, I think, all the different campaigns. That's right. So different campaigns associated with that. So you can actually look at it from a total bird's eye view on how everything is relating to the overall numbers, which I love. So it's super solid. You can even break it down again into different ad groups if there's multiple ad groups. This, in my opinion, is potentially the best update that I think Amazon has actually done. In the targeting section, this one is actually really good. They tried to make this almost like a search term report in the way that it gives you a little bit more data, because in most everything in these sections, it doesn't actually tell you your conversion rate. That's actually one of the downfalls. That's usually why people are like, you got to pull a search term report. There's only a few places that you can add a column for conversion rate, and one of them is actually here. So this is, if you hit customize columns, when you get in here, you can click on conversion rate and you can add it. And it's actually where you can actually see it. Now you see it on an ad group level. And I shouldn't say ad group, on a targeting level. So most of this is all just within the different targets that you're actually doing. And so they're all associated with different campaigns. And so it's scattered around a little bit, but if you keep things pretty well organized, you can always filter things out and be able to narrow down within certain campaigns how a specific target or phone wallet stick-on is doing within a campaign and an ad group. So you can look at this an 8% conversion rate, 7%, 6%, 8%, etc. And you can actually look at it here without having to go into a whole bunch of different ad groups. Like I said, this is mainly where I hang out with most ads. Now, if you want to know these sectionals here, these things are always good. If you have multiple accounts, over here in the top right, this is actually where you're going to actually click on the different accounts or advertising accounts. This would actually include also if you have Mexico and Canada as well. Those would actually be over here. Different notifications, questions, account settings, and then over in the settings, the administration section here, this is where if you need to deal with like your sponsored ad billing, if you ever have something that pops up that says, hey, you need to change your credit card, that's usually here. Account transparency log, account access and settings. There's other permissions and things you can actually do in here. We'll start from the bottom on these groupings here and work our way up. Over time, Amazon implemented a creatives section where you can actually upload creative assets before you actually use them in an ad. So it used to be that in order to create a sponsored brand ad or a sponsored display ad, you had to create the ad and then submit the content. And then Amazon says, nope, sorry, that doesn't work. And then you went through all the process of adding all the search terms, all this other stuff prior. And now what you can actually do is in the creative assets, you can actually upload content directly. I'm actually a fan of this. So you can upload content directly. And once it's uploaded, you can actually request moderation for that thing. And if it gets approved based on sizing formats and all the other formats associated with it, then notice how it says moderation in progress. In the next 24 to 48 hours, this will go under review. And if it's approved and there's no violation of any kind associated with it, we can actually use this in a sponsored display or sponsored brand ad without having to go through the approval process, which means that if that is the content that we're using in that display or video ad, or brand ad, they will actually approve it right away instead of having to go through another approval process. It actually has removed a lot of, in my opinion, headache. In addition, having access to all these different assets is, I believe, a good thing. You can use them for all of your other things. You can also get other free professional images. They have this where you can actually pull this. I forget the group that it's actually done, but the stock photos, you can actually pull some of this stuff for campaigns. Others in the creative, if you hit creative services, this will actually take you to the different groups that you can actually basically hire to actually do this for you, which is cool. And then the video builder, this is actually, it's not great. I don't actually love the video builder, but that's something that you can use if you want to. I just use Canva. I think Canva is better anyways, but you can create a video based on different content that's on a listing, content that's on the listing, etc. So measurement and reporting is probably the next best place. Amazon attribution, if you are running Google ads, if you are running ads or anything actually to Amazon, make sure that you signed up for this, and then you can actually create different campaigns that actually track different data associated with those outside Amazon campaigns coming in. So the advertising that's associated with that. So you can track those, and there's actually a brand referral bonus of 10%. So Amazon charges a 15% referral fee for any product. In a case where you are actually driving outside traffic to Amazon, Amazon says, hey, for any sale that occurs, we will actually give you back 10%. So instead of taking the full 15, we're only going to take 5, and we'll give that other 10% back to you. So this is one of the ways that has actually helped improve the outside traffic flow, that Amazon has been incentivizing that. And we have seen a lot of really good stuff for the Amazon attribution program. So you will have to sign up for that. If you're not doing that, it's a good thing. Not all campaigns work out. It wasn't working super effectively for Riley's stuff, so we didn't do it. But we have other clients that it works really well for. And after you get back that brand referral program, we've had it where it has actually basically equal the same result as what we're getting in our normal internal PPC campaigns. So our sponsored ad reports, this is another place where I tend to hang out quite a bit. If I need a specific type of report, you can hit create report. And if I'm doing deep dives into anything, so you have it according to 3 different types: sponsored products, sponsored brands, sponsored display, endemic, and then you have, of course, Amazon attribution now. But usually I'll do sponsored products. Search term report is my favorite, but if I have a ton of different products that I'm actually working on, I will actually say, hey, I want to know what the advertised product is. I want to know maybe placement, purchase product, purchase over time, search term impression share, and some of these other ones. Most people, okay, so most people who are even watching this video are probably going to hang out in the search term report because they want that over a different section. And yes, you can do the last 30 days, or you can come back and do about the roughly the last 90 as well and pull that all. And this will pull up for all products. You can click save, and then you can give it a name if you want to. You really don't need to, and then you just hit run report, and it will actually pull that report right here. Once it's done, you can download it as a CSV and then review it and do different funnels associated with that to really just compile that data and help it look really good. Report settings, yeah, you don't really need to hang out there. So that's the measurements and reporting. It's a good section to become familiar with for anybody. Like I said, more and more Amazon is moving it where you don't actually have to download nearly as many reports as we used to, just because so much of it is actually showing up right there in the sponsored ads. So you also have brand content here, brand profiles, and your brand store that you can go to and actually build that content there. And then insights and planning. If you want to work on brand metrics, brand impression share, this is actually a good thing that Amazon's been rolling out as far as impression share, saying, hey, where are all your ads versus other advertisers, sponsored products, how is that showing up over the full time? And then sponsored products and sponsored brands and how it's performing. You can apply different filters as it shows up. Then brand metrics. Category brand metrics for lifestyle designs. Under the different categories, for accessories, adhesive card holders, etc. It'll actually show you total brand shoppers within that section, engaged shopper rate, which is this. And so this is actually the percentage of shoppers in this like the category that your brand is driven on engagement with or purchased from in that time frame. Customer conversion rate, which is solid. It's great conversion rates, Riley. And then the percentage of new to brand sales associated with that. And you can change that over a different course, select a month or a week, etc. I actually love, as your brand starts building, it's always good to at least review either here in the ads console or even in brand analytics within Seller Central. You can get a lot of power from that. And then of course, opportunities. Amazon is always recommending things. You don't always have to do the things that they recommend, but it's always good to at least see what they have, different learning sources of how to use their advertising or the different platforms or sections within Amazon, building your brand, update your store, create more posts, create a video translation request, etc. So that it'll actually show up with different languages, etc. Learning resources, and so on. They're always my I'm not going to go into that. I was going to talk for a second about my concern with Amazon sometimes just always recommending things that's actually going to increase your spend, but not necessarily your
Yeah.
sales.
Yeah.
So
Rule
I
of
won't go into
thumb.
that.
Yeah. Amazon's recommendation will always say, hey, you want to spend more? Even the reps will email you and call you.
Yeah.
Their sales reps, they want you to spend more on their product and
Yeah.
services. So we tell just don't worry about that stuff.
Yeah. In my 6 years of doing Amazon, I guess seven now. Has it been 7 years, Riley? I think it's 7 years.
Yes.
So 7-ish years of doing this, I have yet to have someone impress me that actually works for Amazon Ads Console.
Yeah.
Like a representative who I think they understand this is where I have issues. Like the learning resources are tailored towards Amazon working in a specific way. And I believe that they are given SOPs. They're like, hey, follow this SOP. And they do that. And I think they learn that system. The problem is that that system doesn't translate well into actually how the platform actually runs and the results associated with it. So,
Yeah.
anyways, that's its own rant. Over here, there's other tools and resources. You can actually get back to Seller Central by clicking on this, the Learning Console if you want to go there, Partner Directory, and Posts. So that's in a nutshell the entire
Yeah.
system that you're going to see here. Now, over time, there may be other things added. Amazon, like I said, is always rolling out other bulk options, or not bulk options, but beta options, testing out different things based on feedback from sellers like us or agencies like us who are like, hey, it would be really cool if you could make it where we can actually have multiple graphs, because for about
Yeah.
6 years, you could only
Really.
have two. They literally rolled
Yeah.
this out within the last month, and it's been money. So it's been
Yeah.
really good.
Makes sense. Awesome. There you go. Walk through the ads console from Ryan. And of course, in other videos and presentations, we go over campaign structure, strategy, and all that good stuff. That's it for now.